certain problem in the audio, so I fixed it now. Okay, you guys can tell in the comments if there is any problem in the session you're facing, either in visual or in audio. Right, so we were talking about the parasite. It's an organism and that depends on other organisms for its survival, and it needs two things from the other organism. The first thing is definitely the nourishment. Any organism will need nourishment, that's food, because no organism can survive without food. And the second important thing is shelter. Definitely every organism will need a place to live. So the example of parasite is Entamoeba histolytica that lives in human body. So human is its host, and human is going to give what to the parasite? The nourishment and the shelter. If you've got any questions about this slide, I've got 1 to 2 minutes for that. You can ask me in the comments and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. Is there anyone who has a question about a parasite? Okay, come on, ask a question. I still don't have any question in the comments so I can reply to it. Okay, I guess nobody has any question and this is clear to you now. We'll be moving on to the next slide, and that is about parasitology. So the study of parasitology, but we are concerned here with medical parasitology because we deal with humans, and anything related to humans comes under the category medicine. So the study of parasites that infect humans and cause diseases in them is the medical parasitology. Is that clear to you all? I think I should be doing some more sessions on parasitology. I'll be definitely doing, and I'll share with you that table of content that I mentioned in the beginning of the session. If you guys are interested in that, be sure to email me at medzukhruf@gmail.com. Okay, if you've got any question about that slide, ask me in the comments. I'll reply to you. I've got live chat here. I've got no questions about that. I assume this slide is clear to you as well. So now let's move on to the third slide, and that's about the characteristics of the parasites. Each parasite has got two names, like we all humans have names. So same goes for parasites. The first name is always going to be the genus name, and the second is always the species name. The specific thing about the genus name is that it always starts with an uppercase letter. For example, here, if you can see the Entamoeba histolytica, its first name is its genus name, and it starts with the capital letter E. And the second name is species name, and it has got a special characteristics, that is that it always starts with a lowercase letter h. Here, histolytica, not a lowercase letter h in every case, but definitely in case of Entamoeba histolytica, so it starts with lowercase letter h. And if you've got any questions about this slide, please ask me. Okay, I think that this slide is also clear to you guys. Now let's move on to the third one. Nope, I think that's fourth one. That's again about the characteristics of the parasite. If a parasite causes a disease in human beings, it is termed as parasitasis or parasitosis. The disease caused by parasite will always end with osis or asis, except certain cases. Like in case of Plasmodium, it will not cause plasmodiosis or plasmodiasis. It will cause malaria, which does not end with osis or asis, right? So, for example, Giardia lamblia, that's a parasite and it is responsible for causing giardiasis. As it ends with asis, we'll recognize it that this is the parasitic disease. Okay, let me give you a question and you'll answer it in the live chat. The question is, what is toxoplasmosis? Is it a parasitic disease or a bacterial disease? Okay, you can write that in the comments. Is toxoplasmosis a parasitic disease? If so, then why? Okay, toxoplasmosis is a parasitic disease because it ends with osis. And the characteristic of the parasitic diseases is that it always ends with osis or asis. Is that slide clear to you all? I assume that is clear because I've got no question in the comments. Right, next slide is about hosts. When we talk about parasites, hosts are always important. We need to talk about them. Hosts are organisms that harbor the Harbor means that they provide shelter, home. That's why I've got a little hut there in the slide. That shows us that parasites also live in houses. Not in houses, but inside the humans or other hosts. Is that slide clear to you all? Sorry for the background noise. I don't know what happened to my dog today and he's barking. By the way, he's a pointer dog and I named him Rusty. Okay, the next slide is about the classification of hosts, or we can also call them classes of hosts, right? We've got two major classes of hosts. First one is definitive host, and the second one is intermediate host. Definitive host is the last host. Like after that host, when a parasite will get into a definitive host, parasite won't be able to cause any disease in any other host. It will just cause a disease in definitive host and it will die off after causing the disease. And it will exist in its adult stage in the definitive host. And in the intermediate host, it will exist in its larval stage and it won't die after causing infection or after getting mature. If it does not cause infection in intermediate host, it will definitely use it as a source of nourishment to get adult. And after getting adult, it will go to the definitive host and will cause a disease. The example of intermediate host is, the best example is Plasmodium. It has got the intermediate host, that's the mosquito, and it grows in the mosquito, and then mosquito bites the human, and through its proboscis, the Plasmodium enters into the humans, and humans are its definitive hosts, and in humans it causes malaria. Slide clear to you all? If you've got any question about this slide, you guys can ask me in the comments and I'll definitely reply to you. Okay, I'll give you some time to think about any question about definitive or intermediate host or simply host, or you can ask me a question about any of the recent slides or any question in general if you have about parasitology. I think you've got no questions, so let's move on to the next slide. That is about host-parasite relationship. This relationship is called symbiosis. This is the long-term close biological interaction between two biological organisms. Like human is a biological organism and antivirus a biological organism. So they've got a long, close biological interaction. That's why this is termed as symbiosis. It has got three classes. Number one is mutualism. Then we've got commensalism, and the last one is parasitism. Let's talk about mutualism first. Mutualism is a state in which both the partners get benefit. Like the parasite will get benefit, it will not be termed as a parasite in this stage. And the other host, the other organism, the host, will also get the benefit. For example, if we say we've got two fish, one is big and one is the small fish. Small fish will use the big fish as a vehicle, and the big fish will provide the ride to the small fish. And in this case, they are doing certain kind of mutualism. They are not providing any kind of harm to each other. The second kind of the symbiosis, the the parasite-host relationship is commensalism. In this case, host is neither harmed nor benefited, but the other organism gets the benefit. Okay, and the last one is parasitism, the one we are concerned about. The parasite gets the benefit and in return it harms the host. For example, Plasmodium gets the benefit of getting the nourishment and shelter from humans, and in return it causes malaria in humans, and humans are the hosts and they're getting harm from Plasmodium. Is that slide clear to you all? If you've got any questions, you can ask me in the comments, or if you are thinking about the questions, we can do a Q&A session at the end of the live. What's about that? I think that would be great if we do a Q&A session at the end of this session. All right. Now we are moving towards the classification of parasites in detail. That's one of my favorite parts and it's the easiest thing. Parasite is further classified into protozoa, which are the single-celled parasites, and metazoa, which are also called helminths, and these are multicellular parasites. Helminths are worms, right? Protozoa, as I mentioned, are single-celled organisms. For example, amoeba, it has got just a single cell. As you can see there, this one. And the example of metazoa is going to be the tapeworms, as you can see this one. This is Taenia saginata, right? Protozoa are further classified into four major classes. The first one is Sarcodina, then we've got Sporozoa, third one is Mastigophora, and the fourth one is Ciliata. We'll be talking about all of them in detail in just a moment. Now let's look at the Metazoa. It is further subclassified into two major classes. The first one is Platyhelminthes, which is also termed as flatworms, and the second one is Nemathelminthes, also termed as roundworms. Platyhelminthes are further subclassified into trematodes, which are also called flukes, and cestodes, which are also called tapeworms. The nematodes are also classified. The Nemathelminthes, the roundworms, are called nematodes. They're also classified into two categories, intestinal and tissue nematodes. We'll be talking about them in just a moment. Is that slide clear to you all? If you've got any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. And I'll be doing the second session very, very soon, and I'll inform you that earlier, right? And I'll send you the table of content that I mentioned. Please mention your email addresses in the comments, and if you don't feel like that's good to mention them in the comments, you can send me your email address on my email, or just ask me that I was supposed to send you the table of contents. And my email address is medzukhruf@gmail.com. I'll spell it for you, medzukhruf@gmail.com. All right, I think you've got no questions, so let's move on to their details. This was the classification of parasites. Protozoa, as I mentioned earlier, is further subdivided into Sarcodina. For example, amoeba, that includes entamoeba, that is pathogenic, and specifically its type Entamoeba histolytica, and that's a medical parasite. The second one, the Sporozoa, these are also called as sporozoans. The first one in the list is Plasmodium. It has got 4 types, but recently its 5th type is also discovered. First type is Plasmodium vivax, then we've got Plasmodium ovale, the third one is Plasmodium malaria, the fourth one is Plasmodium falciparum, and the last one is Plasmodium knowlesi. And the second sporozoan in the list is Toxoplasma, the Toxoplasma gondii. We'll be talking about all these parasites in our upcoming sessions. So if you've got any questions about these parasites, then you can ask me in those sessions. Is that slide clear to you all? Any questions, feel free to ask me. Okay, I'm mentioning that time and again because some people may feel a bit hesitant in asking questions. Okay, moving on to the next slide. That is about the remaining protozoa. The third class of the protozoa is Mastigophora. These are also called flagellates because they've got flagella with them. The first one is Giardia, that's called intestinal flagellate, that's Giardia lamblia. The second one is Trichomonas vaginalis, that's a genital flagellate. The third one is Trypanosoma, that is blood or tissue flagellate, because it has got two types, Trypanosoma brucei and Trypanosoma cruzi. The next one in the list is Leishmania. Certain types, some of them are blood and some of them are tissue flagellates, like Leishmania donovani, Leishmania tropica, Leishmania mexicana, and Leishmania brasiliensis. And the last type of protozoa is the ciliata. These are the ciliates because they've got cilia. And the first type is going to be not first type, it actually has just one in it, and that's Balantidium coli. Is that slide clear to you all? Let me drink some water, because I can speak fluently without a pause, that's why. Okay, if you've got any questions about that slide, ask me in the comments. I think this slide is clear to you all, so now we'll be moving on to the next slide, that is about metazoa. Metazoa are the multicellular parasites, and they've got two categories. The first category is the platyhelminthes, and it is further subdivided trematodes. Trematodes include schistosoma, which also has some types like schistosoma hematobium, Mansoni, japanicum. The second trematode is Clonarchus sinensis. The third one is Paragonimus westermanni. The last one is Fasciola, the Fasciola hepatica. The second category of platyhelminthes is cestodes. The first in the list is Diphyllobothrium latum, or we can call it D. latum. The second one is Taenia. It has got two types, the Taenia saginata and the Taenia solium. The third cestode is Echinococcus granulosus, and the last one in the list is Hymenolapsus, specifically Hymenolapsus nana. Right, so these were the platyhelminthes. Let's look at the nemathelminthes. These are the nematodes. The first nematodes are the intestinal nematodes, and then we've got tissue nematodes. I'll talk about tissue in just a moment. Now let's look at the intestinal ones. These are responsible for causing infections in the intestine, right? Like their infection. The first nematode in the list is Ascaris lumbricoides, duodenale, and Necator americanus, Microbius vermicularis, Trichuris trichiuria, Strongyloides stercoralis, Trichinella spiralis. Next, tissue nematodes. These are also called as somatic nematodes, and they're responsible for causing infections in the tissues of human beings, right? The first one in the list is Wuchereria bancrofti. The second one is Onchocerca volvulus. Third one is Loa, and lastly, Dracunculus medinensis. Okay, if you guys have got any questions, feel free to ask me. I think this is clear now and you've got no questions. So now let's move on to the next slide and start talking about that. Classification of parasites based on their habitat. Parasite is further classified into four types: the obligate or holoparasite, facultative, accidental or incidental, and aberrant. First, we'll talk about obligate parasite. It's a parasite it's a parasite who cannot complete its life cycle without exploiting a suitable host. If an obligate parasite cannot obtain a host, it will fail to reproduce. For example, head lice. Head lice definitely needs a host because it cannot survive without a host. It needs blood as a food, and it needs humans. In return, it exploits the humans. And this is not just a parasite in the head of the humans, it's also a public embarrassment for those people who have got head lice. It's a disease, and many people do not know about that. Is the obligate parasite clear to you all? If you've got any other examples of obligate parasite, you can share with me. Okay, I think that slide is clear because I've got no questions in the comments. And that is facultative parasite. This parasite may resort to parasitic activity, but does not rely on any host for the completion of its life cycle. For example, amoebas, specifically the Naegleria fowleri, that's a parasite of low importance, but it still causes infections in humans, and it is a facultative parasite. The next parasite based on habitat is the accidental parasite. It attacks or establishes itself in unusual hosts, those hosts in which it normally do not cause infections. Here, the host is referred to as unnatural or unusual hosts. For example, the rat tapeworm gets into humans and it causes infections in humans. It was supposed to cause infections in a rat, but it caused infections in there. Humans are unusual hosts, and the parasite, the rat tapeworm, is the accidental parasite or incidental parasite. Next parasite based on the list is the aberrant parasite. May enter an aberrant host, in which conditions are not adequate for survival, further development, or sexual maturity, like the dog roundworm, the Toxocara canis, if it enters humans. And it was not supposed to enter humans, and the conditions in human body are not favorable for that parasite, so it will not further grow or it will not survive. And this parasite is termed as aberrant parasite. The next thing we are going to look at the classification of parasites based on duration. The first one is temporary parasite and the second one is permanent parasite. If you guys have got any questions, you can ask me about that. Okay, let's talk about the temporary parasites. As its name shows that it will have a short span of life in the host. Let's look at its definition. Organisms whose parasitic mode of life is limited to a few or even one stage of development. As I mentioned, for a shorter period of time, the parasite will exist in the host and after that it will die. For example, larval stage of the harvest mites. Larval stage gets converted into adult stage. The adult stage is not parasitic in case of harvest mites, but it's larval stages. So the larval stage is termed as temporary parasite. Is it clear to you all? Let me drink some water. I know I'm not supposed to share such things in my live sessions, but I think that it's great if we talk and we study. But if we study just like a lecture, that then becomes harder for us to memorize things. Okay, the next parasite list is the permanent parasite. Permanent means that it will establish itself somewhere and it will live there for a longer period of time. Now let's look at its definition. Several generations occur in or on the host of an infested individual. For example, head lice. It will live in the head of a human for a longer time and not just for a year or 2 years. Like it can live for 5 to 10 years. So then that's why it is termed as permanent parasite. Is it clear to you all? If you've got any questions, please ask in the comments. Parasites are also classified based on regions. Like protozoa is classified into intestinal and urogenital protozoa, into tissue and blood protozoa. We'll be talking about all of these protozoa, metazoa in our upcoming live sessions. So stay tuned for those sessions too. Okay, it's time for you guys to ask questions if you've got any. Okay, study hour is saying hi madam, hello, how are you doing? Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question about today's session or has got any question about parasitology in general? So we've got, I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce your name correctly. Hi, Frost Smith. He said hi, hello, how are you doing? If you've got any question about today's session, the introduction to parasitology, the parasites, their classification or characteristics, you guys can ask me. I'll be more than happy to answer you. Okay, so Nuraiman is asking, can I get this PPT? Definitely, you can get that. Email me at medzukhruf@gmail.com, or you can also DM me on the Instagram. I'll send you these PPTs. Study Hour is saying, love your lectures. Thanks for your love, guys. Okay, if you guys have got any question about parasitology in general, you can ask. We've got 5 minutes, and after that, I'll close the session. Okay, so Study Hour says that we need these PPTs. Definitely, I'll give you these. You can email me on my email address, medzukhruf@gmail.com, or you can DM me on my Instagram. I'll send you these. Okay, Home Life Rasmith, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. The lecture was, I think, that was good. I don't understand the word, okay? Thanks, madam. You're welcome. I'm glad you liked the lecture. Okay, I hope this lecture was fruitful for you guys. I tried my best to prepare a good lecture and to summarize it in just an hour. We have got 4 minutes. If you've got any question, ask me. You guys can connect with me on my social media, the Instagram and Twitter, both with the handle medzukhruf. Okay, I think nobody has got any more questions. If you have, please ask. I'll close the session at 6:50, and it's currently 6:47 there in my country. Okay, you guys can tell me about your country in the comments. I'd be happy to hear that. Okay, Adnan Khan Ali is saying, are you a doctor, ma'am? What do you think? If you have any question about today's session, ask me. Okay, we've got just 3 minutes left, and then this session will be done. Okay, we've got next question. Can you please do some medical related mycology? Yep. I've just started mycology series on the channel. I hope you've seen its video, the introduction to mycology. Other videos will also be coming as soon as bacteriology is done. I hope that answered your question. Okay, let me mention my email address for you guys in the comments. You can easily send me a message or a reminder, and I'll send you guys the PPTs of today's session. Right, so is there anyone who wants to ask a question? How was the session today? You can tell me that. You can tell me about your country. You can ask any question about parasitology. You can give me certain suggestions about the upcoming session. That will be about let me tell you that the next session is going to be about the protozoa. We'll look into the introduction and classification of protozoa, and that will be a live session. I hope you'll join at the right time, and I'll change the time to maybe 7 or maybe earlier than that. Okay, next we've got a comment. Adnan Khan Alizay is asking, ma'am, I passed my second year microbiology. Thank you so much. I'm glad you passed it. Congratulations, and thanks to you guys who like my lectures. Okay. I'll send you guys not just the PPTs, also the table of contents, so that you guys know that which session is upcoming. I'll mention the times in the table of contents and the days about the session, so get ready in advance for those sessions. And this was my first live session on YouTube, and I'll be doing more sessions in future, inshallah. And I hope you guys will like that. And it's about to end the session. I really enjoyed doing this session. I hope you did too. See you soon in the next session. Till then, Assalamualaikum and bye-bye.